Hi everyone, it's Yvonne Britton here with you again in another interview, and today I'm joined by Rachel Pelisson. Hi Rachel,
Hi,
thanks for joining me.
thank
Rachel,
you for having me.
you're welcome. Can you give us a little bit of an introduction about who you are, what you do?
Yeah. So I am an intuitive healer and a nutritionist, and I really started out as a nutritionist and then in a very traditional Western medicine sense. I worked in hospitals and stuff for about 10 years doing many, many different things from pediatrics to trauma units to kidney dialysis, management, was in all the big meetings at hospitals and everything. And found my way to starting my own private practice. And in my continuous search for answers and for finding the most powerful healing information, I came across medical medium, or rather medical medium was sent to me. And as soon as I found that information, it completely transformed everything for me. And I very quickly transitioned my practice to using all the medical medium information. So I came from a very traditional Western medical and have brought in the medical medium. And then in doing my own healing and cleansing work, a lot of my intuitive abilities have opened up. And so I do a lot more intuitive work and a bit less nutrition work now, but they're all still very much connected.
Oh, that's really interesting. And what can you tell us a little bit about your own healing journey? Like with you being a nutritionist, did you have some kind of chronic illness yourself, or?
Yeah, my biggest struggle my whole life was with my weight. And so I was always interested in math and science. That was like a natural inclination for me. And when I went to college, I became a nutrition major and started studying it. And I was just always on this quest for understanding how my body worked and trying to heal this like weight issue that had always plagued me for since I was very young. And um, so fast forwarding, I was still kind of on this journey and this search. And in my early 30s, I started to go on to like a spiritual journey for healing and wellness. And so I was at that point, quote unquote healthy, but I had psoriasis for 13 years, definitely trouble sleeping. When I found medical medium, I had recently had a baby. And what I didn't understand at the time was I was definitely dealing with a significant amount of adrenal fatigue. Um, and then just little things like keratosis pilaris, the little bumps on the arms, hair loss after the birth, um, just lots of little, and lots of food cravings, tons and tons of food
Mhm.
cravings. So I was a quote unquote healthy person, and I thought I was eating very healthfully given what my training had been. But I was definitely very much out of balance. And so once I found the medical medium information, the book, so this is the funny part, the book landed in my Amazon as like, you may be interested in one of these books. And I saw it and I just impulsively bought it. And I had this little thing that was like, why'd you buy another book that's just going to sit on your shelf? Like, what was the point of this? But I always say the Amazon angels, put it in there and
Yeah.
gave me a nudge. And so I got it and I started reading it, and it was life-changing foods. And to be totally frank, when I read the first section of that book about the unforgiving four, radiation, um, pesticides, heavy metals, viruses, etc., I was like totally devastated and depressed from it. I was like, this is so heavy and awful. And I put it away for a little while because it was like, when the truth hits you like that, it's like it all comes crashing down. So that was a lot for me to take in. But I kept having this inkling about it. And eventually I went back to it. And I actually found this woman who was running a business training. And on her website, she had this tiny little line, like you could never find it if you're looking for it. And it said that she was in the medical medium practitioner support group. And I was like, bing, I was like, okay, I need to do the business training with this woman, and I need to find out what the deal is with this medical medium stuff. And as soon as I had my first chat with her, then I was like, okay, I'm going back to that information. And I got the first book, and then shortly after, Thyroid Healing came out, and I just dove into it and fully converted my own diet to it, and just started listening to every single podcast, started working with different practitioners and doing different programs, and just fully embarked on my healing journey. So psoriasis was kind of like one of the biggest symptoms that I have totally reversed. I also just had like an adrenal fatigue was a big thing as a new mother that I healed. And then as I dove into this information, I also found my daughter had a lot of liver symptoms. She was a really, really terrible sleeper, and she just needed constant comfort. She was very colicky early on. So I realized she had a lot of liver symptoms. She had cradle cap that lasted for years. So I started pretty quickly putting her on the protocol as well. And I've just seen tremendous healing for her. She sleeps through the night now. Her cradle cap is like almost gone. So it's been a really powerful journey. And then beyond the physical healing, and I mean, there's a whole list of little symptoms that I've healed too, but beyond that, one of the most powerful things in my healing journey is that what I believe is through all the physical cleansing and detox of the liver is I had a repressed trauma that came to light that happened to me when I was 6 years old. And I had kind of had some inkling about this before, just because of behaviors that I had witnessed in myself as a child. But through this cleansing, it all came out of my subconscious, and my body was finally ready to let go of it. And I realized that event was what triggered me turning to food for comfort when I was like about 6 years old. And that's what triggered the weight gain for me. Mm-hmm. So my weight is now at the lowest it's ever been in my whole life. I was heavier than this in high school. And it's not through any efforts of weight loss or anything. It's just really through fueling my body properly and having this whole emotional detox process that came through my healing. So that was a profound shift for me. That is not something I was looking for or going after. It just came.
I have so many questions. So what age was your daughter when she started the change of diet?
She was 1 year old.
Yeah, I think you're lucky in that sense to start that early, because then it becomes second nature for them.
Yeah.
It's trickier when they're older. I know some kids take really well to it. Yeah. So that's an amazing story. That's really, really amazing. So when you started as you were changing yourself, did you just started to do that with your clients as well?
Yeah, so as I shifted into this protocol, and I had a lot of support. I mean, I started communicating and working with like 5 different medical medium practitioners because I wanted to learn all of it, and I did different programs and one-to-ones and different things at different times. So I pretty quickly started shifting my clients because I was also finding there were issues with my clients that I was struggling to help them heal. And I had, in part of my search for the truth, I had really gone down the functional medicine path, which is very paleo. I never believed in the paleo diet, but I did start to go into the supplements and all the testing that happens in functional medicine. And I also got certified in doing food sensitivity testing through what's called the LEAP protocols. And as soon as I started experimenting with those, like I would do 2 or 3 round tests in different people, and I'd be like, this is not it. The tests are so poorly understood and so poorly controlled, and I mean, we're just getting numbers and people are guessing about what you do with them. No one really understands what the information means. And then when you try to decide on a treatment protocol, there's 101 different opinions. And so it just didn't feel, I was doing hormone testing, gut testing, and it felt wrong to me. I was testing on myself. And don't get me wrong, I did get some valuable information from some very wise practitioners who I think, are about as close to medical medium as you can be in the functional medicine world. But, there were practitioners that were saying you need to eat 3 whole eggs every single day. And this is before I knew anything about medical medium. I was like, get out of here. That just does not make any kind of sense. So, so I experimented with a lot of things that I knew were not correct before I went down this path. So started transitioning my clients, and it was scary because I didn't have a lot of experience with the information, but I knew so deep down in my heart and soul that it was the truth, that I had to go with it. And then there was this other fear of, well, what are like my colleagues and the people I went to school with and gonna think of me? Like, they're gonna think I'm completely loco. Some of them can't even get on board with the vegan diet, never mind information that's coming, channeled through spirit. So I had to work through a lot of fears, but I just kept following my intuition, and it has led me down a path that has just been magnificent and so powerful. And I feel so confident now in helping my clients, and my own healing journey has been so amazing. And the cool thing about doing the physical healing is I just see it as like opening all the energy channels in the body and it transforms the emotions from a burden back into a tool. They're really effective in guiding you. And so now I know how to help people not only work through the food and the supplement protocols, but how to work through the emotional journey, and how to work through traumas that a lot of people have. Food trauma. I have a client right now who was forced to eat when she was really sick. It was like, you either eat or we're taking you to the hospital. And so she would eat through pain and sickness. And so that becomes like the default in her energy system. I have another client who was a very picky eater and really disliked the food her parents made, but they wouldn't budge on it at all. And so now, there's this whole trauma around being forced to eat food that you don't like, and like really just like, it's a restriction thing, going after like all the sweets and the cookies and all the forbidden foods because there was so much repression there. So the healing protocols are about the food and the physical symptoms, but it's really about unraveling the relationship with food too. And that was a huge part of my journey with turning to food and learning I was actually an emotional eater, which took me a long time to figure out and understand. And so I think a lot of people have those kinds of issues that they don't even realize. And as they work with me in the long term, we really move through those and release those patterns and help people to really find their path to healing. And I think everyone's path to healing is a little unique. Not everyone is on the same exact food protocol. Everyone has their own way. And so, for me, there's no judgment, because I could have never predicted what my healing path was, or why I was eating certain ways when I was, and why I wasn't eating certain ways when I wasn't. And so I knew that diet and restriction was never the answer, because that never worked for me. And so my focus is always in working through the physical symptoms, but also making sure we're really nurturing the emotional aspect of the self in healing, and allowing that to contribute to the spiritual journey.
Yeah, you must have seen some really amazing results then, because I think that's the really key combination that you're doing.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, do you get to see people who have been following medical medium information for a while but are still not seeing improvements? Because you read stories as well, and some of the Facebook pages have been doing it for a year, and I think weight loss is a big one as well. I've been doing this for a long time, I'm not losing weight, or I've been doing this for 2 years and I don't feel better. Are you seeing people like that?
Definitely. I have a number of people who come to me who have been on the journey for 2-3 years, and they are not making the progress that they're looking for. And so one of the things that I do is I use a pendulum to test people's level of different pathogens, their so how much strep, how much EBV, how much shingles is in the system, what their liver health is, and how is that functioning compared to its optimum capacity, what level of adrenal fatigue there is. So that's where the intuitive abilities come in, where I've always been highly, highly empathic, and I didn't understand even what that meant until probably about 6 years ago. And as I've started to understand that and work with that, what I've realized is that the high level of empathy that I possessed, which was for many years a terrible burden because I was taking on other people's energy all the time, now has really turned into my, intuitive superpower, because I am very easily able to tap into subtle energies. And so as soon as I get on a call or on a Zoom like this with someone, without even going into like a meditative state where I do a reading, I can tap into like what their blocks are. Like I can tell right away there's an emotional component, or I can tell right away there's just a tremendous level of toxicity that's blocking their healing. So typically there's some sort of block. And the primary thing that I see is that there hasn't been enough focus on the liver healing yet. And because when I test people's liver function, it'll be at, 40%, but they've been detoxing for 2 years, 3 years. And so there just wasn't enough focus on the liver. That's one thing. The other thing that happens is people are going so hardcore with food and supplements that what they don't realize is they're actually in adrenaline all the time. And so what I found is that it's not so much about being extraordinarily strict with the diet, but it's more important to be relaxed and really comfortable and happy in your healing journey. So, you don't have to be quite as strict if you're keeping yourself really grounded and calm, and you're really doing the emotional work. Because what I see people swinging in two directions, and one is really an orthorexia, where people are so overly focused, hyper focused on the food. They're undercaloried. Women are losing their menstrual cycles. They're so rigid. Their relationships are becoming extremely stressed. They haven't eaten out in a restaurant for 2 years, and their spouse is like, really upset about it. Like, that's not helping your healing. And then I see the other swing is where people try to get on protocol for short periods of time, then they fall off, and then they try again and they fall off, and it's too restrictive, and so that it throws them into a binge, or especially the people who rely on food as an emotional coping mechanism. I see that happening a lot. And so in all of those situations, what I really see is the key is what I focus on people is reconnecting them back to their own intuition. So how strict do you need to be? And that varies for everyone. Some people don't ever need to give up grains to heal. Some people don't ever need to go fat-free or ever do a cleanse, because it's too triggering for them. And for other people, those things are really, really helpful. Like I did periods of fat-free. Cleanses never really worked for me. They're too intensely detoxifying. Even in the later stages of my healing, like I can't really eat raw for more than like a week. It's just too much. And I think that's partly because I am so highly sensitive or highly attuned. Like it's too big of a shift at one time for my body. So for me, slow and steady and gradual change is the best. And I find that is the best for a lot of people. So the key really is getting reconnected to your intuition and listening to what your body wants, because your body may need more fat than the other person that's healing, that you read their post in the group, or what you read in the book even. It may be too detoxifying for you to eat raw until 4 p.m. So really tapping back into your own intuition. And a lot of people have it and they can start to reconnect to it. And some people are completely disconnected from it. And typically I see people who are completely disconnected from their intuition, there's some level of trauma around that, where it's not safe for them to access their intuition. So wherever people are in that spectrum is really what I help them address, and help them get back to center, get back in their bodies, reconnect with the intuition, reconnect with the spiritual journey of this. And, letting go of expectations is a huge part of the journey, because, expectations are the theft of joy. And so if you can just ground into the moment, it makes the whole process easier. So there's a lot of work to do in the emotional and spiritual realm in terms of this healing. And it's not about working harder, which I think gets misinterpreted. I don't think that's Anthony's message. I really don't think it is. When you read the books, that's not what he says. But I think sometimes in the Facebook groups and in the, you know, the chatter on social media, that the messages about emotional and spiritual healing get a little bit lost or buried. So I really try to reconnect people to those aspects of healing.
I completely agree with you. What's your recommendations with regards to supplements?
So I think less is more. I also use pendulum testing for supplements, and sometimes it even surprises me what comes through. I'm like, oh, this is definitely, you don't need to take this right now. And then I'll test with the pendulum, and it's like, oh, no, actually, this is good for you. So we'll take what a higher power tells us is the real healing information and not what my brain thinks it is. So yeah, for supplements, less is more. I think the core supplements are important for almost everyone: B12, zinc, and vitamin C. And sometimes even that is too detoxifying for people. So you just have to, you know, scale it back to what, again, your body is telling you it can tolerate and what feels good. I think the healing journey is supposed to feel good. Like, yes, there are detox symptoms and you go through periods of emotional detox, but you should feel joyful as you're doing this. And so that's one of my big messages. If you're not feeling joyful, then something is off, and we need to get you back into joy, love, self-compassion, because those higher vibrational emotions are the healing emotions. And so if you're down in fear, anxiety, guilt, even self-hatred, it doesn't matter what you do, you won't heal, because your body's in such a low vibrational state that you're adrenalized all the time. You're constantly in a trauma response. Your immune system or your central nervous system is constantly overstimulated. And so you can eat raw all day and take all the supplements, but your ships are going to be so small and it's like trudging through mud. Whereas if you get into the higher vibration emotions, you know, then you're just floating down the river of healing, and you get to really enjoy the process. So not to say there aren't turbulent waters at times, because there's bumps in the road, but for the most part, you should feel really good. So those are kind of top 3 supplements. I also love curcumin for cleaning up the liver and dirty blood. So anti-inflammatory. Lemon balm is also top on my list. And then beyond that, you know, it varies person to person, but I think that using, and then like, I like to keep people at 5 or 6 supplements, which is sometimes hard to do, but no more than 10 ever, like ever. And especially in the early phases of healing, because a lot of times what you're doing, so you'll see that Anthony recommends, like on the 369 cleanse, not to take supplements while you're doing it, because the liver has to process all of that. And so while you're in this cleansing mode, you want to give it as little to process as possible. So if you're taking 10, 12, 15 or more supplements, you're actually overloading the liver, and then you're slowing down your healing process, and you're spending a tremendous amount of money that you don't need to spend. So keep the supplements simple. I read a beautiful little quote. I can't remember who it was from, but essentially it was about the fact that nothing external heals you. Not a supplement, not a food, not a person, not a thing. When the body gets an injury, like you get a cut on your finger, and you put a Band-Aid on it, the Band-Aid doesn't heal the wound, the body heals the wound. But when you give the body, you keep the wound clean, you keep it covered, the body can heal more quickly. But if you have a wound on your finger and you rub dirt in it and you constantly bang it and irritate it, it's going to take a lot longer to heal. So what we're doing is just giving the body the environment that optimizes its healing capacity. And so the supplements are not healing you, the food is not healing you, your body is healing itself. But we want to be supportive in that process as much as possible. And the emotional state and the adrenaline state is a massive, massive factor in creating that healing environment. So less is more with supplements, definitely.
Oh, I love what you just said. So when it comes to being like calm and trying to keep your stress levels low, what do you recommend? Like, and I'm also thinking about exercise, like what kind of combination of things do you normally recommend?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's about the first thing is just cultivating an awareness of where your stress level is. Because a lot of us are chronically stressed and we don't even know it because that's just our normal. So we don't even know what calm feels like. So I think the first thing is like to start really reconnecting to the messages the body sends. Like, where's your heart rate? What's your, are you holding tension in the body in certain areas? Like, are you able to take deep breaths throughout the day? Those are really simple things to start tapping into and keying into and seeing like what's your level of adrenaline throughout the day. So I use the term like non-judgmental self-observation. So also not just observing your physical body, but observing your thoughts. Like, are you in these cyclical stories all day about victimhood or resentment or anger or guilt or whatever? Like, those are key things to start shifting and moving out. Meditation, hugely powerful. All of Anthony's meditations are beautiful and so simple. I think meditation doesn't have to be like sitting on a pillow oming all day, but meditation really varies. But getting people really grounded is super important. And by grounded, it's really about energetically connecting to earth energy so that it just helps to balance the chakras and it helps the energy flow through the body to be more balanced. And so I do a lot of work with meditation and guiding people through meditations, doing healings that produces really big shifts because it creates energy shifts. And so I think, we're always thinking about like physical pathogens and physical toxins and physical supplements, but there's a whole energetic body that we need to also address. And a lot of times when you shift the energetic body, then all those physical things shift a lot more easily. So, I've had people with like frozen shoulder who after a 1 hour meditation have like not full range of motion back, but huge range of motion they didn't have before. Had, just all kinds of stories like that where big physical shifts happen from energy changes. So finding someone that you feel really comfortable getting energy healing from in whatever modality that is, that kind of stuff is so, so powerful. And because a lot of us are carrying around dark energy, heavy energy, recorded to other people, recorded to other situations. We're even carrying energy from our ancestral line that doesn't even belong to us, but it's in our energy fields. And so cleaning up that stuff is astronomically important, and it just really shifts your vibration. So for me, it's all about bringing people back to their true selves. And that's what meditation does, and that's what exercise helps move that energy. So I don't have like a specific protocol. Like, I just tell people to follow what feels good for them. Mm-hmm. And if you can't meditate because you feel so anxious you can't move, like, well, then that's stuff we need to like get to the root of. Like, why are you so adrenalized? And again, sometimes there's trauma behind that. So getting people back to their true center, like getting them aligned with their higher selves is so, so powerful. And I think, I have a big foot in the spiritual world and another foot in the medical medium world. And what I find is that people tend to be super hyper focused on food and supplements and exercise and all the things you have to do. And then in the spiritual world, every ailment is labeled as a psychosomatic thing. So it's like, whatever energetic imbalances or emotional imbalances you have are manifesting as physical illness. And where I see is my role and my calling is like merging those two worlds and bringing the spirituality and the physical healing together, because you can't meditate away EBV. Maybe you can, but odds are you cannot, or strep or shingles. Like, you need healing protocols to deal with that stuff. But you also can't juice away trauma or juice away chronic anxiety and energy cords to, a parent or an abusive situation or something. So there really needs to be a merging and a true holistic look at all the aspects that are contributing to mind, body, and spirit health. So yeah, it was a long answer to a exercise and meditation question. But
no, it's totally fascinating. How do you work with people then? Do you, because like if you're going to be working with someone to shift a traumatic experience, do you, I mean, you do that over Zoom, no? Or not, I think especially now that's the only option, but do you do, is it like programs that you have, or is it, you know, like one-to-one programs, or how does it work?
So I have a number of different programs that kind of fit depending on people's, like how much time they want with me and their budget, of course. So like I have a monthly membership that is, you know, very inexpensive, and we do a group call once a month, and they get content once a month that teaches them about a supplement and a physical healing component and a spiritual healing aspect. So that's like a really fun, easy way. And it's a small group right now of women who are incredibly supportive. It's like a Facebook, and there's a Facebook group that goes with it, but it's a very supportive little community. So some people prefer to be in a group format like that. Then I also do 3-week courses that teach really the foundations of medical medium protocols, along with the emotional and spiritual support aspects of it. I have one geared for adults, and I have one geared for children.
Awesome.
And then, so those are my group programs. And then in terms of one-on-one, I do single sessions where you can either do a nutrition consult, where I'll test your pathogens and what supplements you should take, and we'll talk about a food protocol for you. And then I also do intuitive readings where I do body scans, and I go into a deep meditative or trance state, and I just scan the energetic body, and different parts of the body will light up for me that have a message to share. So I'll get either visual images, like when I look in someone's mind, do I see sunny skies with flowering fields, or do I see rain clouds and like rocky waters smashing on rocks, rough water smashing on rocks. So then I can say like, okay, here's what I'm seeing, let's interpret that together. And then I do a lot of energy clearing. So I work with primarily with the archangels. The biggest angels that I'm working with right now are Archangel Chamuel and Archangel Metatron. They have both come to me and given me healing information direct that I'm meant to use for myself and also to heal my clients. So I work with those angels a lot. Archangel Raphael, Ariel, Archangel Michael, I work with them a whole bunch and just doing all the healing techniques. And then parts of the body will light up, like the physical body, that have messages to show. So like the liver will show me if it's really healing or if it's really struggling and it needs more attention. The lymphatic system, I might see the lymphatic vessels light up as red in the chest, and that to me I interpret as meaning things are pretty clogged up, and so we need to focus on some lymphatic support. And then in those readings, I also read the 7 major chakras, and through that comes information about anything, life purpose, what the soul is calling for right now, energy cords that need to be cut, ancestral cords that need to be cut. Like sometimes we're holding food insecurity from a relative who didn't have food in the 1800s or 1700s, and that gets passed down through the DNA. And so those are things that can be shifted through energy healing. And then sometimes past loved ones or spirit guides will come through in those sessions as well. So that's really beautiful when people get those messages. So those sessions are super powerful. They're one of my favorite things to do. And then, so those are single sessions that can be booked anytime. And then in my highest level of support, I do 6-month coaching packages, which are really the major transformational packages for people who are really ready to make a big shift and they want a lot of support from me. So that's the most intensive way to work with me. And my goal for clients in those sessions, we do a quantitative assessment of their symptoms. So a symptom survey, which many of you may have heard of or seen from other practitioners. So you get a total score, like let's say your score is 75, or we'll call it 100 for easy math. My goal for people in that 6-month package is to have at least a 50% reduction in symptoms. and I have at least a 90% success rate at reducing people's symptoms by 50% in that 6-month time frame. So obviously not all symptoms can be healed. The healing is a long journey. For a lot of people, it's 2-3 years, but we can make a good impact in the symptoms in that time frame. And my goal is to give the tools and reconnect with the intuition so that after the 6 months you kind of graduate and you don't need me so much anymore. And I'm obviously available for check-ins and whatever, but my goal is to really empower people to come back and realize that they are their own greatest healers. I don't heal anyone, you know, energy healers don't heal anyone. You heal yourself, and you work with different practitioners at different times based on what you need. And it's like, you know, I'm here to hold your hand and set the space and set the container and create a safe space for you where there's absolutely no judgment and you can really be honest and raw and true. And there's no shame. If you eat pizza one night, I could care less. Like, it's fine. You can do that and you can still heal. So that package is all about creating that space where you really make a big shift. And when you invest your time and your energy into a more intensive program like that, you get a bigger shift, because not only are you investing all your efforts into that healing, but you also have the second party and all the angelic, you know, universal support behind you. And so it's like anything in life, when you make a big commitment, right? Like when you decide to go to college and you get a degree, like the transformation is huge. And so that's what, you know, the 6-month healing package is all about. And so having me to hold space and create a sacred container for your growth. And so that's a powerful, powerful program.
They all sound amazing. Yeah, I'm like, it really does sound amazing. Where can people find you, Rachel?
Yeah, rachelpelisson.com. That's the easiest way, and then everything else is linked from there. But there's lots of free recipes, downloads, articles, how to get started with medical medium there. Some meditations are on the way, getting uploaded there. And then I'm on Instagram as rachelpelisson.healing, on Facebook, Rachel Pelisson Nutrition. So if you just Google Rachel Pelisson, you'll find all my stuff.
Okay, well, I really appreciate you sharing that with us today. I think I could ask you so many questions. I don't want to keep it too long, but thank you so much for doing that.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks.